The old Grand Royale Hotel had been closed for renovation for almost 2 years. Its marble floors were dusty, its chandeliers wrapped in white sheets, and its long corridors echoed with silence. Only a handful of people had permission to enter the building after sunset. One of them was Elena Voss. Elena was 28, a professional photographer from a small coastal town. She had been hired by the new owners to capture the hotel's decaying beauty before the major restoration began. For 3 nights, she had wandered its empty halls with her camera, tripod, and a single flashlight, chasing the way moonlight fell across forgotten furniture and peeling wallpaper. She loved the quiet. She loved being completely alone with the building's ghosts. On the 4th night, something felt different. The air was warmer than usual, almost heavy. Elena had finished shooting the grand ballroom and decided to explore the private residential wing on the 15th floor, an area strictly off-limits even to most workers. She told herself it was just for a few atmospheric shots. The long central corridor there was famous in old photographs, a straight, elegant passage lined with tall mirrors on one side and heavy oak doors on the other. She had seen pictures of it and wanted to capture how the mirrors reflected endless versions of emptiness. She reached the 15th floor just after midnight. The service elevator groaned to a stop. Elena stepped out, her footsteps soft on the thick carpet that still smelled faintly of old perfume and cigar smoke. She was tired, her shoulders aching from carrying equipment all evening. The idea came to her suddenly, almost playfully. No one was here. No security cameras worked yet. No maintenance crew would arrive until morning. For the first time in days, she felt truly invisible. She set her camera bag and tripod down near the elevator. Then, with a small smile at her own boldness, she began to undress. First her jacket, then her shirt, then her jeans. She folded each piece neatly and placed them on top of her bag. The cool air of the corridor touched her skin. She kept only her simple silver necklace, a gift from her late mother, and nothing else. Naked, free, and strangely alive, Elena picked up her camera. She wanted one perfect self-portrait in that endless mirrored corridor. Just one shot where the reflections would stretch her figure into infinity, like a secret the building would keep forever. She walked slowly down the center of the corridor, barefoot on the soft carpet, the flashlight left behind, so the only light came from the moonlight pouring through tall windows at the far end. Her reflection multiplied on both sides, hundreds of Elenas walking together in perfect silence. She raised the camera, adjusted the settings by feel, and prepared to take the shot. That was when she heard it. A single, quiet click. Not the sound of her camera. Something else. A door latch. Elena froze mid-step, the camera still halfway to her eye. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She told herself it was nothing, an old building settling, wind in the vents, her imagination. But then she saw him. At the far end of the corridor, where the moonlight met shadow, a man stood completely still. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that seemed to absorb the light. His face was partly in darkness, but she could see the sharp line of his jaw, the calm way he held his hands clasped in front of him. He did not move. He did not speak. He simply watched her. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to cover herself, to disappear. But her body refused to obey. She stood naked in the middle of that long mirrored corridor, surrounded by countless reflections of her own vulnerability, staring at the stranger who had appeared from nowhere. He took one slow step forward, then another. His shoes made almost no sound on the carpet. Elena finally found her voice, small and trembling. I thought the floor was empty. The man stopped 10 meters away. His eyes, dark, unreadable, moved over her for only a fraction of a second before returning to her face with surprising respect. He spoke in a low, measured voice that carried the faint trace of an accent she couldn't place. This wing is private. No one is supposed to be here after 10. Elena felt heat rush to her face. She wanted to sink into the floor. Her arms moved instinctively to cover herself, but it felt pointless now. The damage was done. She was standing completely exposed in front of a man whose presence filled the entire corridor with quiet authority. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm the photographer. The owners gave me access to the main areas. I didn't know anyone else was."
She stopped.
The man had tilted his head slightly, studying her the way one might study an unexpected painting on a wall. "My name is Victor Hale," he said quietly. "This hotel belongs to my family." Elena's stomach dropped. She had heard the name Hale only in passing, whispers among the renovation crew about old money, old power, and connections no one liked to discuss openly. She had assumed it was just rich people gossip. Now she understood it was not. Victor did not come closer. He remained where he was, giving her the small mercy of distance. His voice stayed calm, almost gentle, which somehow made the situation even more terrifying. "You should get dressed, miss."
Voss.
Elena Voss. Miss Voss. Elena nodded quickly. She backed away toward her clothes, never turning her back to him completely. Her hands shook as she pulled on her shirt and jeans, the fabric feeling rough against her chilled skin. Victor waited in complete silence, his gaze fixed on the floor now, as if granting her privacy after the fact. When she was dressed, she stood there awkwardly, camera still dangling from her neck like a guilty secret. "I'll leave right now," she said. "I won't come back to this floor. I'm really sorry." Victor finally looked at her again. There was something in his expression she hadn't expected. Not anger, not amusement, but a kind of quiet curiosity. "Most people who break rules in my buildings either run immediately or try to lie," he said. "You did. Neither at first. That is unusual." Elena didn't know what to say. Her heart was still racing. He continued, "The hotel is not safe at night yet. Old wiring. Unstable sections of floor. You should not wander alone." "I know. I was stupid." A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of his mouth. Honest, at least. An awkward silence stretched between them. Elena expected him to call security, to threaten her, to order her out of the building forever. Instead, Victor gestured toward the elevator with one hand.
"Come.
"I'll walk you down." She hesitated. He noticed. "I am not in the habit of harming photographers who take their clothes off in my corridors," he said dryly. "Especially ones who look like they might faint from embarrassment any second." Despite everything, a small, nervous laugh escaped Elena's lips. She picked up her bag and tripod and followed him. They walked side by side down the long corridor. The mirrors reflected them now as two figures, one tall and composed in black, the other small and disheveled, clutching her equipment like a shield. Neither spoke until they reached the elevator. As the doors opened, Victor stepped inside with her, but kept his distance. "Why did you do it?" he asked suddenly, his voice softer than before. "Take your clothes off, I mean." Elena stared at the floor numbers, lighting up as they descended. "Because I thought I was alone," she said honestly. "Because for once I wanted to feel free. No eyes watching. No expectations. Just me and the building. It was a stupid impulse." Victor was quiet for a long moment. "Freedom is rarely found in places that belong to other people," he replied. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened into the dimly lit lobby. Elena stepped out, expecting him to stay behind. Instead, Victor followed. He walked her all the way to the side exit used by the renovation crew. Outside, the night air was cool and carried the distant sound of the city. Before she could thank him or apologize again, Victor spoke. "Tomorrow night, the 15th floor will be locked, but the rooftop garden is safe. If you still want quiet and moonlight for your photographs, you may use it. I will inform security." Elena blinked, surprised. Why would you do that?" Victor looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing his own words. "Because I saw someone who was not trying to steal, not trying to spy, not trying to impress. Just someone looking for a moment of honesty in a very old, dishonest building."
He paused.
"That is rarer than you think." He gave a small nod, almost formal. "Good night, Miss Voss." Then he turned and disappeared back into the shadows of the hotel without another word. Elena stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, her camera bag heavy on her shoulder, her mind spinning. She had walked into that corridor naked, expecting solitude. Instead, she had walked straight into the gaze of a man whose name carried weight and danger in equal measure. She should have been terrified. She should have packed her things and never returned. But the next night, at 11:30, Elena Voss returned to the Grand Royale Hotel. She took the elevator straight to the rooftop garden. The space was beautiful, overgrown with wild vines and half-dead roses, fairy lights still strung across forgotten pergolas. Moonlight bathed everything in silver. She set up her tripod and began to work, her movements careful and focused. She did not expect company. Yet at midnight, Victor Hale appeared at the edge of the garden, again in a dark suit, again moving with that same quiet authority. He carried 2 cups of coffee in paper sleeves. "I thought you might be cold," he said simply, offering her one. Elena took it. Their fingers brushed for a second. Neither pulled away immediately. They sat on the wide stone ledge overlooking the city. For a long time they said nothing. Then, slowly, conversation began, not about the hotel, not about what had happened in the corridor, but about small things. About why she became a photographer. About the way old buildings hold memories better than people do. About the strange comfort of silence. Night after night, Elena returned. Night after night, Victor appeared. He never asked her to leave. He never mentioned the corridor incident again. But sometimes, when their eyes met across the rooftop, she saw the memory of that moment flicker between them, not with shame, but with a strange, shared understanding. He told her fragments of his life. Not the polished stories rich men usually offered, but honest ones. The pressure of family expectations. The loneliness that came with power. The way he sometimes wished he could walk through his own buildings without every shadow hiding an agenda. Elena told him about losing her mother young, about chasing beauty in broken places, because it made her feel less broken herself. Weeks passed. The renovation moved forward. Workers began sealing off sections. The rooftop garden would soon be closed too. On the last night before the garden was locked, Elena and Victor stood at the edge, looking out over the glittering city. "I have a confession," Elena said quietly. Victor waited. "That first night when I saw you, I was more embarrassed than I have ever been in my life. But I was also relieved." "Relieved?" She nodded. "Because for the first time in years, someone saw me completely unguarded, no performance, no mask, and didn't look away in disgust or try to use it against me." Victor turned to face her fully. The moonlight caught the sharp lines of his face, softening them somehow. "I have spent most of my life surrounded by people who calculate every move," he said. "That night, I saw someone who had stopped calculating. It was disarming." He took a slow breath. "I am not a good man, Elena. My world is complicated, dangerous even. But in that corridor, for one moment, I felt like a man who had simply walked into something real." Elena looked up at him. The city lights reflected in her eyes. "Then maybe we both found something honest in the wrong place." They stood close now, the space between them small enough to feel the warmth of each other's presence. Victor lifted his hand and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the first time he had touched her since that night. "I don't expect anything from you," he said. "But if you ever want to walk through another corridor, clothed or not, and you want someone who will stand guard at the other end instead of surprising you, I could be that person." Elena smiled, small and genuine. "I think I'd like that." She stepped forward and rested her forehead against his chest for a moment. He did not pull her closer. He simply stood there, letting her choose the distance. Below them, the Grand Royale Hotel continued its slow transformation, old secrets being covered by fresh paint and new promises. But on the rooftop, 2 people who had met in the most unexpected way stood together in silence, sharing a kind of freedom neither had planned to find. Elena never photographed the 15th floor corridor again. Some moments, she decided, were meant to live only in memory, naked, vulnerable, and strangely beautiful, witnessed by a man who, despite the weight of his name and the shadows he carried, had chosen to protect the quiet instead of exploiting it. And somewhere in the mirrored reflections of that old hotel, 100 versions of Elena still walked that corridor, forever captured in the instant before she realized she was not alone. But this time, she was not afraid.